Europe again forced to confront the fact that some of its citizens are committing atrocities for Islamic State. This after several were identified in the jihadist's latest execution video. Peter Oliver reports on the battle against the Middle Eastern menace.
Fierce fighting on the border between Turkey and Syria. Islamic State or ISIS are the biggest threat facing the Middle East right now. And while that may seem far away from Europe, people on the continent are growing increasingly afraid.
We are worried that people who went to fight there will come home trained in terror and live among us like ticking time bombs. It will only be a matter of time before something like a train station being blown up happens. We demand our security services stop them returning.
Despite the threat, the latest polls show a surprising level of support for the group. In France, 16% said that they had a positive opinion of ISIS, while in the UK, it had more backing than in some Arab nations. In the Netherlands, a separate poll of young Turks revealed 80% saying they saw no problem with jihad against non-Muslims. Compare all that to a survey in Egypt, where Islamic State appealed to just 3% of those questioned. Support from Europe is also manifesting itself physically, with security services increasingly realizing their own citizens have gone off to join the group. The latest brutal video revealing British, French and German killers.
The German intelligence service slept through the beginning of this crisis and missed the start of its development. Now we have two issues: young men going to fight a holy war and many more making ID papers and documents available so others can go and fight anonymously.
Meanwhile, an ISIS defector in Norway has revealed the group's threat is moving ever closer to home, saying there are cells awaiting orders, and it's more than one group. Right now, the battle against ISIS is being fought in Iraq and Syria, but there's growing concern here over the amount of support the group has received from Europe, and a worry that future battlefields may be closer to home. Peter Oliver, RT, Berlin.
The UK says there's a substantial terror threat to its police force posed by Islamic State. Officers being told not to wear their uniforms off duty and to keep a low online profile. Analyst Chris Bambury from the International Socialist Group thinks London's foreign policy could be breeding extremism at home.
Muslims in Europe are very alienated from a society where they have been targeted as the enemy within for over a decade since 9/11, where they're subject to a level of harassment. For instance, this country, stop and search by the police. We see these charities being investigated. Ironically, an aid worker beheaded by ISIS for one of the charities, and now they've been harassed by the British government. A sense of alienation and a dislike of British foreign policy, which saw not just the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, but, for instance, the British fully supporting the Netanyahu government in the most recent war against Gaza. There's a deep sense of alienation here. And really, I think the question must be asked at Britain. Its foreign policy is what is creating hatred of Britain and indeed of America around the globe. Why don't they pull back from invading other countries? Why don't they pull back from full-scale support from Israel? And that might begin to address the question.